Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our WNCT Now late afternoon news update. I'm Kelsey O'Donnell, broadcasting to you live right here today from our digital studio with today's top news headlines. Right now, we're tracking a developing story out of Michigan this afternoon. 6 men are facing federal charges and 7 more are facing state charges in alleged plot to kidnap and kill the governor of Michigan. FBI agents and police staged a series of raids on locations in Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin aimed at suspects in the conspiracy. Prosecutors say the men consulted with groups considered by the government to be militias on how to get the governor Gretchen Whitmer at her vacation home in northern Michigan. They reportedly rehearsed elements of the kidnapping, testing improvised explosive devices. In a statement today, Governor Whitmer called police charged in the assassination plot, quote, sick and depraved. Called people charged, Whitmer is in her first term as governor. She was considered a finalist to become Joe Biden's Democratic running mate. We'll have the latest updates tonight on WNCT.com and on later editions of WNCT News. Tracking crime across the East, police say a juvenile is facing charges in the murder of a teenage boy at a Greenville motel. 17-year-old Antej Jeray Harris was killed at the Baymont Inn on Memorial Drive on Sunday morning. Yesterday, officers arrested the young suspect who's being held at the Juvenile Detention Center. They're not releasing the suspect's names due to the person being a minor. The vice presidential debate is now behind us, but there are some doubts whether or not the second debate will happen, including the top names on that ticket. Skylar Henry looks at the controversy over the next face-off.
The Commission on Presidential Debates announced next week's debate would be done virtually in light of President Trump's positive coronavirus test. But they didn't run it by the candidates first.
I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating's all about. You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous.
Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden said he wants to see if Trump sticks to his word.
We don't know what the president's going to do. He changes his mind every second. So for me to comment on that now would be irresponsible.
President Trump says he wants to get back on the campaign trail, even saying he'd hold a rally tonight if he could. That's despite CDC recommendations that say COVID-positive people should quarantine for at least 10 days.
I don't think I'm contagious at all. Well, first of all, if I'm at a rally, I stand by myself very far away from everybody, so whether I was or not. But I still wouldn't go to a rally if I was contagious.
The Trump campaign is considering an in-person event in Pittsburgh as early as Monday, something that stumped Mr. Biden.
If he goes off and he's going to have a rally, I don't know what I'll do.
Biden is heading to Arizona to meet up with running mate Kamala Harris to launch a bus tour of the battleground state. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Speaking of elections, the upcoming mail-in voting is getting a lot of attention this year. Our Anya Kraft has what you need to know before sending in your ballots.
The 2020 election is a few weeks away, but many people are choosing to mail in their votes because of the pandemic. There are things you need to know and do to make sure your vote counts.
It's required for the voter to sign the absentee ballot application on the outside of the ballot envelope and also have a witness sign and put their address there.
There are consequences if you fail to follow North Carolina's absentee ballot guidelines.
If any of those 3 things are missing, then the ballot would be deficient.
It's better to get your ballot in sooner rather than later.
Go ahead and return that ASAP. That way you can track your ballot and ensure that there were no problems.
Officials say that gives them time to work with you to make sure your vote counts.
If we don't accept it as an accepted ballot, then they can always go to One Stop and vote there, or either go back to Election Day and vote there too.
Ballot tracking programs let people follow votes through the election process.
They would be able to know that they would need to go vote in person if that didn't get through. So I think with all the issues around mail-in balloting this year, it's a great thing for voters.
Beaufort County's elections director says people are getting lots of mail labeled as absentee ballots.
We're not sending those. Political parties are sending them, political groups are sending them. It's just like any other piece of election mail. If you don't want it, just throw it away.
The voter registration deadline in North Carolina is October 9th. Absentee ballot requests must be in by October 27th. As for returning your completed ballots, you can drop them off at Board of Election offices by 5 p.m. on November 3rd or put them in the mail postmarked on that same date. Ariana Kraft, 9 on your side.
Thank you, Ariana. We're going to take a quick short break, and when we return, an update on Hurricane Delta.
Hey everybody, I'm your First Alert meteorologist, Alex Wasilenko. You know, this year has been filled with a lot of uncertainty and many changes too. Here at 9 on your side Morning Edition, we're going through some changes of our own, but one thing that will never change, our commitment to you. To be on your side and to help you start your day with your local news and local weather. In Jacksonville and Onslow County, good morning to you folks. Grab the umbrella. 9 on your side Morning Edition, weekdays from 4:30 to 7.
The Mike Houston Show, a look inside ECU football. Sundays at 11:30 on WNCT 9 on your side and Eastern North Carolina CW.
Welcome back. If you are just now joining us, my name is Kelsey O'Donnell, broadcasting to you live right here from our digital studio here in Greenville, North Carolina, providing a news update in between our newscasts. Now, like I said before the break, we are going to take a look at Hurricane Delta across America. Louisiana right now is under a state of emergency as Hurricane Delta moves through the Gulf of Mexico. Let me pull up some footage here for you. Nearly 60,000 people are under mandatory evacuation orders, like I mentioned earlier. Delta already slammed into Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula as a Category 2 hurricane. Now, downed power lines, massive debris, and toppled trees lined the streets in Cancun. Some American tourists couldn't escape the storm and had to shelter in place with hundreds of others. A storm surge watch is also in effect from Texas to the eastern border of Alabama. And before we wrap up our WNCT Now update, I want to make note of 2 brand new platforms for you to hear news and join in on the conversation. WNCT has rolled out our podcast series right up here on your screen, 2 different segments. What the Politics, pictured on the left-hand side, with Emily Severich and Victoria Holmes, features the top political stories nationally and specifically right here in the East. Our second podcast, the one pictured on the right-hand side, is called the WNCT 9 on Your Side Sports Talk, where I myself, alongside sports director Brian Bailey and Nolan Knight, get to break down and chat about some of the latest sports headlines every Wednesday. You can catch the latest, most recent episode on our website under the live stream page, as well as on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This will wrap up our WNCT Now digital news update. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to stick around for more top news headlines again coming up this evening at 5 p.m. on air and online on our broadcast. Thanks so much for watching.